Director General of Department of Home Affairs, Mr. Makhode, distinguished visiting ministers and guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As the Executive Chairman, I extend a warm welcome to everybody joining us in person and online for the kickoff of the 2024 Annual General Meeting of the ID4Africa movement. This year's edition, themed Digital Identity as DPI, Fostering Trust, Inclusion and Adoption, unites over 2,000 in-person participants from 101 countries, with record numbers never seen before from African governments and development agencies. Over the next 4 days, we will embark on an intense journey of knowledge sharing, collaboration, and empowerment that can only be described as next-level conferencing. Esteemed friends, this year marks the 10th anniversary of ID4Africa and the ID4D movement. I'd like to clarify from the outset that the term ID4D refers to the domain of identification for development rather than a specific initiative. While ID4Africa is an example of an ID4D initiative, there are several others, including the World Bank ID4D program and the UN Legal Identity Agenda, to name a couple with whom we collaborate closely. For those interested in the genesis of ID4Africa and ID4D, please refer to page 64 in the event guide. As we commemorate this important milestone, we can reflect on a decade of progress, while acknowledging the long road that still lies ahead in our pursuit of identity for all. Progress is evident across multiple fronts, from reducing invisibility to expanding digital identity use, from improved appreciation for governance to heightened sensitivity to protecting human rights. While tools and indicators for systematic analysis of such multidimensional advancements are becoming available, I will refrain from quantifying the progress to date for 2 reasons. First, I don't think a decade is the right amount of time to judge our progress. I will elaborate on this notion shortly. More importantly, I wish to use my limited time this morning to highlight an aspect of our journey that is not easily quantifiable, but which, in my opinion, is even more significant than developmental metrics at this stage. In fact, a glimpse of it is clear and present at this AGM. Just look at what's in the hall. I'm talking about the community that we have built together. This is an extraordinary group, coherent in its purpose and supported by a shared culture and well-functioning institutions. I'd like the cameraman to pan on the crowd, just give you an idea, because where you're seated, you cannot see this. But if the cameraman could please pan on the crowd. I'm very proud of that community. Building such a unique collective is a formidable task, and every stakeholder, whether government, development agencies, industry, or civil society, has contributed meaningfully to this endeavor. Look at your diversity in this room. Chief among the institutions supporting our community are the ID4Africa Ambassadors Bureaus. An African country becomes a member of the movement by establishing one of these bureaus. The bureaus steer their country's ID4D efforts and serve as liaisons between the movement and the stakeholders. Today, we have 48 member countries represented by 124 ambassadors. In fact, it's quite fascinating to see how the membership grew over the years. It wasn't simple, everybody was there. It had to be built one by one. And the last one that joined this year was Zimbabwe. So put your hand up for Zimbabwe for having joined us. I would like to ask the ID4Africa ambassadors to please stand up. Please stand up. As I said, we have 124 ambassadors, and not all of them are here. They may be seated elsewhere. But if the cameraman could please give me a live video feed of the ambassadors, please do so. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a big round of applause to these dedicated individuals. Their role surpasses mere titles. They actively collaborate with the General Secretariat, shaping our agenda, delegations, and identifying needs all year long. Furthermore, the bureaus now collectively form the ID4Africa Council, which is our governance and oversight board. ID4Africa is governed by Africa. So this is not a foreign movement. It is driven by grassroots, by the countries themselves, and we extend an invitation to the remaining countries in Africa to join us on this noble cause. Thank you, ambassadors. You may be seated. The composition of a bureau, which consists of up to 3 government representatives, is based on the principle of sectoral collaboration that I advocated at the 23 AGM in Nairobi. The movement's charter now mandates that each bureau should include 1 representative from an identity or civil registration authority and 1 from an ICT or digital development agency. We consider these as the core stakeholders in the digital identity agenda. The third may hail from a user entity, such as immigration, health, central banks, social protection, or regulatory agencies, such as data protection commissions. So we welcome this type of sectoral diversity. Our commitment to fostering collaboration extends to other segments of our community. For example, we recently facilitated the formation of a consortium to advance the African CRVS shared asset, AXA. This initiative underscores the importance of civil registration for both legal and digital identity and reminds us of the investments in digital identity must include civil registration as well. Workshop 3 on Friday will delve into the normative, implementation, and governance aspects of AXA. It's open to anyone to attend, room capacity permitting. Other highly developed institutions serving our community are our knowledge and convening platforms consisting of the AGM and the livecasts. While ID4Africa is the custodian and curator of these platforms, they are open to all partners who have valuable content to share. Look at the organizations leading workshops at this AGM. This is collaboration at its finest. Look at the lineup of speakers this year. 170 frontline practitioners and renowned experts from over 145 distinct organizations. What do you call this? I call it a brain trust of the most exceptional kind. In essence, we have succeeded in cultivating a distinctive community of interest and in giving it a voice, and in furnishing it with the open institutions that amplify that voice and carry it far. I am compelled to share something we are very proud of, captured in an infographic showcasing our community's geographic reach. Take a moment, take a look at this graphic. The graphic depicts the number of individuals actively engaged with the movement in each country, using circle size to represent their count, with the largest circle symbolizing 2,000 individuals. These are supporters we can count on for knowledge, expertise, and advocacy anywhere in the world. You could estimate how many active members are. Can anybody give me a number based on these? Anybody want to guess? This represents over 20,000 professionals who are engaged in identity, either as a supplier, either as a government agency, or as a user of identity from sectors like immigration, sectors like health, etc. So while the concentration is clearly in Africa, coming from government bodies representing all sectors, we have strong presence in the US. You could see the US has strong presence, primarily because of our development partners, such as the World Bank and the UN agencies. So all of those partners who work and collaborate with us are listed as US-based. And then, of course, in Europe and India, where we continue to benefit from the participation of technical expertise. Indeed, I believe this impressive global cohort is the most consequential outcome of our collaboration thus far. This is why I am filled with optimism and confidence, because this bodes well for the next chapter of our journey. As we say, the sun never sets on ID4Africa supporters. From east to west, west to east, they're all present and can support us at any moment. Let me return to the question of the right time frame for judging progress. While the SDG community, which you are familiar with, the Sustainable Development Goals, adopted a 15-year window, I contend that 15 years may not capture the full scope of change, let alone 10. Profound societal change typically requires 20 to 30 years before its effects are entrenched. The computing, mobile, and data revolutions are prime examples, each taking several decades to realize their full impact. We expect a similar trajectory for the digital identity revolution. I can illustrate this point with an identity scheme that has become indispensable in our lives. I'm referring, of course, to the biometric passport. Today, it is hard to imagine a world without e-passport. Nevertheless, the journey to universal adoption was neither swift nor straightforward, and I can testify for that. I still remember the pivotal meeting in Geneva in 1996. I arrived on a snowy morning. It was very cold, and I was very jet-lagged, but I will never forget that meeting. That's when I demonstrated face recognition before the IKO working group on the next generation passport. There was a lot of excitement, but there was also much skepticism. This was the first time they saw face recognition in action, live face recognition. They were skeptical about scalability and real-world adoption. How could the man and woman in the street simply adopt it for their passport? The story could have ended there, but a handful of forward thinkers, led by Barry Kefauver, who was representing the United States State Department at the time, relentlessly pursued the concept. They fostered a supportive community and championed standards, open standards, and over time, they gradually succeeded in transforming skeptics into enthusiastic adopters. Yes, it took 30 years for the e-passport to reach universal adoption. Today, its undeniable success demonstrates that a compelling idea, coupled with unwavering determination, supported by a community united in its commitment to humanity and human rights, can succeed. I'm honored that I had the opportunity to do my humble part in that massively collective endeavor. I firmly believe that the same success awaits digital identity, but on a bigger scale. The stakes are high, but so is our determination. Let us seize the opportunity to do our part. So, has coverage of digital identity in Africa reached critical mass? The answer is clearly no. There has been very good progress across the continent. However, population-scale digital identity is still far from being realized. But the encouraging news you already heard is that we collectively possess the ingredients necessary to achieve this objective and to achieve it responsibly and sustainably if we take the right steps. But yes, there are grave risks going forward. Risks that can undermine what we have accomplished thus far. To help mitigate these risks, we are making explicit a new guiding principle for the next chapter of our journey. To appreciate this principle, I ask you to please turn your badges around and look at the back. Turn your badge around and look at the back. Indeed, my friends, the principle, empowering every voice, every choice, must guide our steps as a community going forward. It must become part of our shared culture. In its first part, it affirms that all stakeholders, not just the executive branch of government and development agencies and industry, must be involved in the ongoing conversation about digital identity. In other words, our culture should include a commitment to inclusive dialogue, not just inclusive outcomes. We keep talking about inclusive outcomes, but to get to inclusive outcomes, you have to bring inclusive dialogue a priori, from the beginning, from the start. So we strongly believe in that. At this AGM, we're pleased to welcome about 70 members of parliament. This is the first time we're bringing members of parliament here. From 20 African countries, 170 representatives of civil society and NGOs, and about 30 data protection and privacy practitioners. They're not only attending, but are on the program. Please give a warm round of welcome to all the newcomers. Welcome to your community. The second part, empowering every choice, is equally crucial. In fact, there is a risk that in our enthusiasm, we think we know everything. We get enthusiastic and we forget the essential. We might favor one solution or business model, but that could stifle innovation. Somebody somewhere who has ideas, who comes and pushes development forward, if they are allowed to do so. So stifling innovation and leading to a new form of lock-in that we have to guard against. I want to urge the development community to refrain from endorsing a singular approach. Let's continue to uphold technology neutrality and rely on our guiding principles and open standards to set boundaries for investments and cultivate an open market within which diverse solutions can compete. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of this point. Without a vibrant market and strong private sector participation in Africa, the digital development agenda risks derailing and slowing down. So while the development community should assist governments to strengthen their capacity to make informed decisions, ultimately it is up to these government bodies, to make their choices. without interference and in line with their sovereignty. We have to respect the sovereignty of countries. Before I explain how the program is responsive to our current agenda, I would like to remind you that our community also has its day, and that day is 16 September. ID Day has become part of our culture ever since the ID4Africa 2018 AGM in Abuja, Nigeria. At that time, the Assembly overwhelmingly voted to adopt ID Day 16 September in tribute to SDG 16.9, which calls for identity for all, including birth registration. I encourage lawmakers present with us today in this room to facilitate laws recognizing this day. By doing so, you would be signaling to your constituents that their identity matters and that you are committed to helping them leverage it to enhance their daily lives while safeguarding their privacy. I would like to recognize and congratulate Madagascar for being the latest country to officially recognize 16 September as National Day of Identity. Please, warm round of applause. Thank you, Madagascar. They joined many others, including Nigeria, Niger, Liberia, Namibia. I would love to be standing in front of you in a day when we do not even say ID Day needs to be recognized. We actually all, everywhere, we celebrate it. 16 September becomes part of our culture. Let me walk you quickly through our extraordinary program, which is the culmination of extensive research, thoughtful curation, and consultations with many of you, our community and bureaus. This morning, we kick off with the Africa report, providing updates on the continent's digital identity progress. Subsequently, PS3 will spotlight 4 trailblazing countries that have achieved remarkable milestones in their digital identity journey. Later, in PS4, we have an exceptional multi-segment policy session delving into DPI as an approach to digitalization. Tomorrow starts with the Technology and Solutions Symposium, exploring experiences and lessons learned from real-world deployments. Following this, we have the privilege, it's really exciting, to have the NIST Symposium, where 3 of the world's most distinguished experts will provide comprehensive insights into the state-of-the-art in biometric performance. This will be followed by a session on the interoperability of identity systems and data, a topic that is becoming increasingly more pressing for the regional and continental integration schemes. And don't forget to join us tomorrow at 16:15 as we unveil the host country for the 2025 AGM. As previously announced, we are returning to the tradition of government-hosted AGMs in 2025. So, find out which country emerged as the winner, and there were quite a few who have really vied for that position, and which government body will be proudly hosting you. Day 3 starts with an in-depth exploration of digital credentials encompassing wallets, mobile IDs, and verifiable credentials. We will then conclude the AGM plenaries with a Guardrails trilogy, reflecting our commitment to inclusive dialogue and to establishing the right enabling environment to foster inclusive outcomes and prevent harm. The trilogy starts with an insightful session on governance, which includes members of parliament, followed by the CSO session and then the legal reforms plenary. Also, be sure to check out, during the next 3 days, the Networking and Expo Zone, featuring cutting-edge innovations from 121 leading providers, which you can see them here. I encourage you to take the time to visit, engage, and thank the exhibitors for their presence. Their participation not only strengthens the movement, but more importantly, ensures that the continent has an open, transparent, performant marketplace responsive to its technological needs. Additionally, visit the hands-on AI area to witness AI, artificial intelligence, impact on identity development demonstrated by Ernst & Young. While the plenaries and exposition wrap up on Thursday, the AGM continues on Friday with 5 major workshops and 2 forums. I do not have the time to go over them in detail, but look at the impressive lineups. You're welcome to attend any one of them, subject to room capacity, of course. You will have 3 parallel sessions in the morning and 3 parallel sessions in the afternoon. So you need to choose what is the most pertinent session for you. They will be held in this location after it's divided into 3 separate rooms. So you don't have to go anywhere, it's here. These workshops are essentially mini conferences embedded within the AGM, led by our esteemed development partners. So do not miss your chance to engage and make your voice heard even louder. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has played a vital role in bringing this AGM to fruition. The list of contributors is extensive. We really don't have time to mention by name, encompassing our esteemed ambassadors, our Ambassador Emeriti, our development and knowledge partners, the patrons, the category sponsors, the exhibitors, speakers, media partners, the South African Department of Home Affairs and VFS for their assistance in facilitating the visa for our government delegates. And of course, the dedicated staff of the ID4Africa General Secretariat that have really worked tirelessly over the last year to put this thing with me together. This is a major, major collaboration, and I'm very proud of each and every one of them. Please, a round of applause to them. Please refer to page 68 in the event guide for a detailed listing. It would be remiss of me not to give a special shout out to our frequent attendees who have supported our cause through their active participation year after year. If you have attended previous events, could you please raise your hand? You could see. Your dedication merits our deepest gratitude and recognition. Despite formidable challenges, including a 2-year disruption due to COVID-19, you stood with the movement and reaffirmed its resilience at the time when everybody said it's dead. To our newcomers, I extend once again a heartfelt welcome to our community. I know many of you have traveled from afar to an event you've never experienced before. So thank you for your faith in us. It means a lot to us. But I'm confident that our worthy cause will earn your ongoing support. We look forward to your continued presence among us in the next chapter of our journey. Today, as we gather to herald this very next chapter in this breathtaking location, amidst the resilient landscape, I'm reminded of the timeless wisdom of the father of modern South Africa, Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it is done." My friends, let's derive inspiration from these words. My esteemed colleagues, let us get it done. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Now, I have the privilege of asking the Director General of the Department of Home Affairs to come to the stage to welcome you to South Africa. While this year's event is uniquely host neutral because it's our 10th anniversary and it was your wish that no government should host us, the Government of Home Affairs has played an important role in facilitating the visa issuance for our government delegates. I'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to them and of course, to the people of South Africa for their warm hospitality. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. To the Executive Chairman of ID4Africa, Dr. Joseph Atick, a special welcome to you and the delegates. To the Master of Ceremony, first I'd like to tender an apology on behalf of our Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. As you know, South Africa on the 29th of May decides, and therefore the Minister is engaged in other activities. Ministers that are in attendance, members of Parliament, civil society representatives, ambassadors and deputy ambassadors of ID4Africa, senior government officials that are in attendance, directors general, permanent secretaries, former permanent secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And allow me to say Jambo Africa, Bon dia. And Dr. Atick, to the latest ID4Africa, latest member, Zimbabwe, to those that are from across the Limpopo, Mangwanani. And then those that are from neighboring Mozambique and Angola, Ola. Those that are from Lesotho and Botswana, Dumelang. Those that are from Eswatini, Sanbonani. So I'm delivering Dr. Atick this speech on behalf of the Minister, who says it is his singular honor to welcome you to our warm and beautiful country. The Minister says the first international audience I addressed in 2019 after he assumed office was this gathering, Dr. Atick. In a way, he says today's address offers him an opportunity to update you on the ground that we have covered as a country over the past 5 years. As a country, we are relentlessly pursuing various strategies to ensure that we defeat the scandal of invisibility. And the Minister says, Dr. Atick, it's a term that he first heard at the ID4Africa 2019 conference. South Africa's journey since the attainment of democracy in 1994 has been remarkable. As the nation commemorates 30 years of democracy this year, the ID4Africa is a golden opportunity to mark this historic occasion. It is a moment to celebrate South Africa's gains with our partners on the African continent and to express appreciation for the journey towards freedom, equality, and justice. We've journeyed together as pathfinders towards the transformation of our individual countries, and importantly, Program Director of our beloved country, united by the resolve to roll back the frontiers of poverty, underdevelopment, unemployment, and corruption. It makes sense to celebrate with ID4Africa and other stakeholders that we've walked this path with us, particularly now as we close the 6th administration and the dawn of a new 7th term of the democratic government in my country. The Minister says, as we take stock of the progress in South Africa, ID4Africa is also reflecting on its achievement in the current global landscape of digital identity. The ID4Africa 2024 conference held on our shores under the theme Digital Identity as DPI, Fostering Trust, Inclusion, and Adoption, commemorates the 10th anniversary of ID4Africa and the ID4Africa movement. It is therefore against this background that South Africa is today providing an update on the status of its digital identity projects, which reflects a remarkable achievement of democracy. Of course, as founded in 2014, this movement accompanies African nations on their journeys to develop robust and responsible identity ecosystems in the service of development and humanitarian action. The movement is driven by the need to establish identity for all, not just as a legal right, but as a practical necessity to enable inclusive access to services on the continent. And as you correctly said in your slides, in 2015, September, the international community adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, one of the targets is Goal 16.9 on the provision of legal identity for all, including birth registration. The goal was meant to promote international human rights enshrined in Article 6 of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights and related instruments. Official identity, Chairman, can be described or defined as an identity that carries a legal status, usually issued by the government to their citizens and those that are residents. And of course, the World Bank defines a digital identity as a set of electronically captured and stored attributes and credentials that can uniquely identify a person. Of course, the lack of form of any acceptable identification limits an individual's ability to access critical services such as health, education, and of course, economic participation, including, of course, formal political life, such as voting, as we will be doing on the 29th. It is in this context that SDG 16.9 advocates for identity for all by 2030, including civil registration. We've heeded the call, Chairperson, as South Africa on the continent to commemorate Identity Day. The plan going forward is to encourage the whole of society, including our non-governmental organizations, civil society, and the private sector, to support Identity Day to raise consciousness of the importance of identity and birth registration. And of course, the Department of Home Affairs is entrusted with the responsibility for civil registration and identity management functions. And we do this based on the following 4 pillars. 1, clear institutional mandate and accountability, access for all eligible persons and free from discrimination, removal of barriers to access and use unique, trustworthy, secure, and accurate identity. And we've made a lot of strides, informed by, of course, the Birth and Death Registration Act, the Identification Act, and the South African Citizenship Act. Currently, Chairperson, the rate of civil registration in South Africa stands at 88.6 of birth. And I think it's quite a remarkable achievement. Since 2010, the birth registration within 30 days in South Africa is showing an increase in terms of the data that we have. For example, in 2010, we had registered 500,000 children within 30 days. This peaked at more than 800,000 in 2019, and of course, before reaching 744,000 last year. Overall, Chairman, we have registered more than 15 million births since 2010. So clearly, we are making inroads. Similarly, we've issued more than 24,626,700 smart ID cards since inception in 2013. Just last year alone, we were able to issue 2.8 million smart ID cards. If you were to compare to the figure in 2013 when we started of 125,112. And of course, our own National Development Plan, which is the country's blueprint for development, has set a target for 100% of civil registration by 2030. Of course, we are making a huge stride as a department because we have partnered, amongst others, with the Department of Health in the Republic, which paved the way, Chairman, for the opening of 162 Home Affairs offices in health facilities for birth registration. In this way, ladies and gentlemen, parents are therefore encouraged and assisted to register birth of children before leaving our health facilities. We also have 412 Home Affairs offices across the country which assist in this regard. But we have also innovated, Chairman, with the procurement of 227 mobile Home Affairs offices, or what the Minister refers to Home Affairs on wheels, which are able to reach our far-flung areas. But we are also bringing government services closer to the people. Recently, we've opened new operating offices in shopping malls in partnership with the private sector. This includes in Gauteng, for example, a new office in Main Lane, a shopping center, Cresta in Randburg, in Gauteng as well, and the pavilion in Belleville in KwaZulu-Natal. Here in the Western Cape, Chairperson, we are operating at a mall called Maynard Mall in Wynberg, and of course soon we will open another one in Tiger Valley. So these are just some of the strides that we'd like to mention in terms of what we are doing. Chairperson, as I wrap up, I really want to ensure that you, on behalf of the Republic of South Africa and the Department of Home Affairs, to wish you a successful ID4Africa 2024. Thank you, obrigado.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would love to know if you think one day South Africa would officially recognize Identity Day. Would you work on that? Not to put you on the spot, but we would love to have South Africa make a statement to the world.
Absolutely, Chairperson, we will do that.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We're ready to start PS1. So please, the speakers for PS1, make your way to the stage. I would like to point out something about a new platform that we are implementing called Slido. So I'm calling to the stage Yodahe ZEMICHAEL, the Executive Director, National ID Program, and ID4Africa Ambassador from Ethiopia. I'm calling to the stage Ambassador Professor Julius BITOK, Principal Secretary, State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services, Ministry of Interior and National Administration from Kenya. And I'd like to call Engineer Abisoye COKER-ODUSOTE, thank you, who's the Director General and CEO of the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, and ID4Africa Ambassador. We were supposed to have Togo, our ambassador from Togo, Mr. Devo. Unfortunately, because he is ranked in the military and the elections taking place, no military individual is allowed to travel outside the country. In fact, you may have noticed this year was filled with elections in Africa, and so we suffered a little bit. But judging from the crowd that you could see with no seats available, we didn't do so badly. So despite elections, you are here. Thank you. So let me welcome Engineer Odusote. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, put up on the screen, please, the new platform which we call the Slido. This is your way to engage and get connected. So at any moment in time when the speaker is speaking or after they're finished, we will be taking questions via the Slido platform. You can look at the event guide in the back of the event guide. There is a Slido QR code. Ask your questions via the Slido platform and let the audience vote which question you want me to have the speakers answer in priority. So this is the first time we're doing this. I hope you will join and you will encourage this platform because it will allow the community to be engaged more. We will also do some polls after they finish. So 15 minutes each, okay? 15, 15, 15. After they're all finished, we will start taking Slido questions and doing some polls. Okay, without any further delay, I'd like to start with Yodahe. Yodahe, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph. My name is Yodahe. I lead the Ethiopian Digital ID Initiative. I'm also serving as Deputy Director General of Cybersecurity Administration. I feel extremely honored to be here. I feel excited and honored to be here amongst you to share with you some of our updates, where our status is, where our program is. I'm also very happy to be here in the presence of a big community, a strong community of ID4Africa, starting from the chairman himself, Dr. Joseph, and the big community I see here. So I feel extremely honored. The first time I have been in this conference, it was in 2019 in Johannesburg. Since then, the Our ID program has benefited immensely from this gathering, from the community, from the domain experts, from the interaction. We've had so many one-to-one sessions with many African countries, experience exchange, most of which happened during these physical AGM sessions. We also benefited extremely from these webinars. There are so many webinars that are organized by ID4Africa. As Dr. Joseph mentioned, we really appreciate the very neutral stance. They really respect sovereignty. At the same time, they help educate programs like ours to take a good path. So without further ado, this is our ID program. We call it FIDA. In many, including I think in Swahili and Arabic, also in most of our local languages, FIDA means value. That's the name of our digital ID project. So to tell you a little bit about numbers, we officially launched our project in 2022. Now we've almost reached 5 million digital IDs issued. As you know, enrolling people is an expensive affair. It requires physical presence in so many hundreds and thousands of locations. So we're slowly scaling up. We're a little bit behind schedule, but we're still very proud of this number here, the 5 million number. It's a result of sweat and hard work of our indefatigable, strong team, and we're proud of it. Even though the number that, with respect to the total size of the population, it's not very big, we have about, so far we've made 44 integrations with different agencies, with banks, with telcos, with civil service organizations and agencies. So 44 integrations is a number we're also proud of. Agencies are already offering Know Your Customer or FIDA-based KYC services to onboard their own customers and subscribers. Another achievement is our ID and privacy proclamations, which are already passed. The first one is passed in 2023. It's called the ID law. The second one is passed a few months back. It's the personal data protection proclamation, both of which are important proclamations that really give us a strong foothold for our project. And then, even though the numbers with respect to a big population, 120 million, we're still at a very early stage. We've started authentication. Earlier, last year it was pilot, but right now, we've started real-time online KYC authentications, and we've integrated through application interfaces in some cases and through portals in other cases. And we've reached about 8,000 authentications per day. Credentials, printed credentials. So you cannot talk about ID without cards. That's apparent. And we've partnered with Ethiopost and a few other local entities to start card printing on the ground. Today you can order online to get your printed card, and then after a few days it will be delivered to you to your address. Another important success we have is we have strong strategies that we've been working on, continuously evolving strategies. We have a good credential strategy, authentication strategy, technology strategy, enrollment strategy, etc. So we have published some of it. You may find it on our website, ID.ET. So this interesting graphic here, it shows some of the use cases, some of the major use cases that we're working with. We have highlighted telcos and banks. because telcos and banks alone, they have about 60 to 70% of total eligible population, which accounts to somewhere between 50 and 60 million people have bank accounts and SIM cards. But we have also identified other major sectors that we are prioritizing and strongly working with. They include, as you can see, education, social programs, refugee, tax, and health that's recently started. So we have identified and prioritized important use cases that are necessary for our developmental aspirations and the government's overall plan. So here are a few of them categorized in a more structured format. So with banks, for instance, we have started joint enrollment. So you can go to a bank in Ethiopia, in any physical bank branch, and then register there for FIDA digital ID. Same with the telco. Ethio Telecom is the biggest telecom company. They're in many of their shops today, right now about more than 200 shops, telecom shops, where you normally go to get your SIM card, you can go and register. So they have become a joint registration partners, but it does not stop there. The most important, the end game is for services to be integrated, for someone with a FIDA ID to go and get a SIM card using their FIDA ID, for someone with a FIDA ID to go and open a bank account, get a loan, etc. So those are not just registration stations, but those will be the future service delivery locations, the physical locations as well. Refugee, here we have highlighted it because it's an interesting case. Refugees, as you know, have rights everywhere. In Ethiopia, they have rights as per the law, access to so many services that a citizen has the right to access, but it's limited due to technical factors. So now with integration with FIDA, a refugee can access services that they are normally entitled to. So it's good for refugee inclusion and integration, but at the same time, it's good for our program and for the overall data consolidation because we avoid double dipping. Someone may say I'm a citizen here and someone elsewhere may say I'm a refugee here. So that's also secondary benefit. We have government services, one of the most important of which is revenues. Taxpayer identification system in Ethiopia used to rely on its own set of biometrics in the past. Now we have integrated it with FIDA, which we consider is a good success. So right now, if you want to get a TIN, taxpayer identification number, you have to get a FIDA number first. It's very seamless, so you go to one window, get your FIDA number, and then you can get your TIN. And with Ministry of Revenues, we're working on allowing people to get their TIN online, so they don't have to come in person to the tax office to get their taxpayer ID. They can generate it online once that person already has FIDA, because in a sense, we're establishing online trust. We also have a few other interesting use cases. We work with some UN organizations working with social programs. Civil service in Ethiopia is very big. We have about 2.3 million civil servants, and they're rolling out their own civil service automation management system, but it requires uniqueness. And for that, they don't have to invest in a separate scheme. They are relying on FIDA. So we have interesting use cases. Another one is farmers registry. We have a big agrarian economy, so there is a large number of farmers in Ethiopia. So the farmers registry is now based on the FIDA ID. So essentially, we are playing our role of foundational ID for many important initiatives in the country. Another important aspect is awareness. This is a new way of thinking. People may not easily understand when we say, you know, once you are registered, once you have a unique number, it means you are identified in the system. So essentially, you have an ID. It's a new way of thinking, a new way of rolling out ID. So we have to be proactive in our communication. Nowadays, social media, gossips can get out of hand, as you know. So we have to be proactive before any false narrative develops. We are very, especially in the digital space, we're working hard We have a good social media presence in Facebook, Twitter, whatnot. We also have, recently we are starting television and radio presence as well for the communities that are used to traditional media. So we do interviews, publications. We have a strong call center, and a national level kind of call center that's working 12 hours a day, but 6 days a week. So it's very active. We give so many support. We get so many calls, people who don't know what it is, people who don't understand what it serves for. Why should I get it? How do I get it? Where do I get it? My birth certificate is wrong. My ID is wrong. I made a mistake in my spelling. All sorts of complaints we manage through this live call center. And recently, with our integration with Ethio Telecom, which obviously has a much bigger presence, they have about 78 million subscribers. So we are doing this national call center together with Telcom. Credential strategy, we wanted to highlight it because we believe it's interesting. It's very much hybrid. Printed credentials is something that's endorsed by law. So technically, it's possible for a FIDA holder to download a PDF version from their mobile application or from the online portal, and then use it as a legal identity credential. The second one is FIDA application that we have embedded in so many existing apps like banks and telcos. They have their apps, and within it we have embedded like a mini app that carries your FIDA credential. And the third one is plastic printed card, the PVC. And then right now we're moving to laser and polycarbonate type of card. All three are equally accepted. We don't really push one over the other, but people's needs are different. As the previous Director General mentioned, invisibility is a big problem all over Africa, and the same applies to us. So people who lack documentation always prefer the printed plastic card. The rest of us who already have maybe 5, 6 cards in our pockets, it's okay, we can carry the digital version. But lots of people have a demand for a plastic and like robust kind of identity card. So that's why we're partnering with, as I mentioned earlier, with Ethio Post and just recently with Ethio Telecom. So we integrate through an application interface for printing the cards, and then through their logistics networks, they print the card and they distribute it. They charge their customer a certain fee to issue the card. And that chart you see below is how we do this printing service integration with our partners. Authentication, it's also an interesting case. We endorse both online and offline authentication. Right now, since we are relatively at a very young stage, some of our partners cannot do full integration. Also, there is a limitation on our sides. So we offer them an online portal. So it's accessible through a VPN tunnel. We connect them through the VPN, and they can open this portal and authenticate if a given FIDA number or an alias number is authentic, but also not just authenticate, but they can download the KYC document in PDF format. So it's some kind of hybrid authentication. Okay, yeah. And then we have made some real-time eKYC integration with certain agencies. So that's also operational, but the numbers, our infrastructure is limited, so we're recently scaling it up. So most of the authentication we're doing today, it's the offline authentication that you see there on the right. So we have an authenticator app, like a scanner, a QR code scanner, but a specialized QR code scanner because the digital signature is embedded. So that QR code scanner can tell you whether that credential is authentic, but also at the same time, it can offer the KYC, offline KYC. It's good because distributed identity is important for privacy. People, whenever they do their authentication, they do not always want to do it online or in some centralized database format. So this QR code-based offline authentication, we believe as it evolves, especially in the future, it's going to be the mainstay of doing KYC. And then technology-wise, what does our technology strategy look like? So system integration team, so far it's been an in-house team. We're incubating a few engineers to offer some of the services in a subcontracting kind of modality, but most of our engineers we hire directly from the local market. So system integration we've been doing ourselves, but going forward, we plan to go for an infrastructure type of SI, especially with the new project, with the World Bank project. We're focusing on SI, kind of a managed cloud service provider. So they help us scale while we maintain the core development and the core customization of the middleware that we use. As you know, we use MOSIP as our middleware. Future-proofing, it's also important because we believe 5 years, 10 years down the line to offer digital ID, you don't need perhaps 3 modalities. Maybe you don't need iris or you don't need fingerprints. Face could be enough with all the new artificial intelligence advancements that's happening. So technology today definitely will be far different from how it is 5 years down the line when we do ID4Africa 2030. I'm sure a lot of things will change. So we are mindful of our investments and our technology choice. That's what we meant by future-proofing. And then security and privacy. Every data has a cost. Number one, because of privacy, it has an immeasurable cost because we're collecting people's biometrics, we're collecting personal data. So cybersecurity is of utmost importance, so we have given it due attention. These are some of challenges we faced and how we have overcome them or how we are overcoming them. We have categorized them into 4. Operational, communication and awareness-related challenges, policy-related challenges, and technology-related challenges. I might have gone over time, so I'll just skip through it, but you can take a picture and then we can discuss in the next few days. So thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you, Dr. Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. As you could see, the Slido has been buzzing with lots of questions for you, but we will take them at the end in the order of the most popular. So continue to engage with the Slido, and the operator in the back, please put up Slido picture-in-picture so that people can see what is happening on the Slido platform. You can ask questions or you can vote on questions by others. So now we're ready to move to Kenya for another fascinating overview of what they're doing with digital identity. And we're pleased to have, of course, Ambassador BITOK with us. Please. Thank you.
Dr. Joseph Atick, who is the Executive Chairman of ID4Africa, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's really an honor and privilege for me to stand before you this morning to give an update, an account of Kenya's digital identity system. And before I give my account, allow me to thank ID4Africa Executive Chairman and the Secretariat for having this conference held in Kenya last year. I want to say a very, very warm thank you from the government and the Republic of Kenya for hosting this very important conference. I want to begin by saying Kenya has had a foundational identity system for the last 60 years. And currently, we have more than 32 million Kenyans having ID cards across the country. of which this accounts for about 96% coverage countrywide. So overall, Kenya has made a lot of progress in terms of identity matters. And today, I'm just going to give a very short account of the progress made over time, and particularly in the recent past. Kenya has made several attempts in upgrading and modifying its identity ecosystem. And just to highlight a few areas, allow me to say that currently, the government of Kenya is rolling out what we call Maisha Identity Ecosystem. And in the Maisha Identity Ecosystem, we have 4 components. And for those people who don't understand Swahili, Maisha means a lifetime number. So the first component of the Maisha Identity Ecosystem is the unique personal identifier. This is a number that is given to newborns when they are born. When a child is born in Kenya, they are assigned a unique personal identification number called a Maisha number. That number, they use it for their lifetime, and I will explain the details as we move forward. The second component of the Maisha digital identity system is what we call electronic ID card, what you are calling in Swahili Maisha card. It's a card which carries the Maisha number. The third component, of course, is what you are calling Maisha digital ID, the virtual version of the Maisha card. Instead of carrying the card around, you can carry your phone with a digital ID. And of course, the fourth component is what we are calling Maisha integrated database. This is a database that is interoperable and connects the entire government, the taxes, health, education, and the entire government. So going to the details, Maisha number, of course, is UPI, and it is assigned to newborns when they are born, and that number is the number they run with in their lifetime. It's the number they use to register when they go to primary school. They use it as a registration number for secondary school. They use it for their ID when they get to 18. They use it as a tax number. They use it as a lifetime number. And when they die, that number becomes their number on their death certificate. Initially, Kenya had an 8-digit number. But after consultations and looking at the best practices world over, we adopted a UPI, which is a random 9-digit number that is generated automatically at birth. And that ensures privacy and security of the information in the database. The second component, of course, is the electronic card, which is a digital card, a smart card that is issued, which meets the ICAO standards. Currently, Kenya is issuing a smart card for all persons who are turning 18. This card can be accessed through the machines, or it can also be accessed through the NFC software. You can always check the chip to confirm identity. This has enhanced privacy and security of identity in Kenya. Of course, this is how the card looks like. This is the Maisha card. It meets the ICAO standard. It is a national ID having those components. It has a chip, and it is using the latest technology. And the third component, of course, is the Maisha digital ID. This is the virtual version of the digital ID, which is now under pilot. And we are able to onboard people on this digital ID. Applicants are required to download an app into their phones, and then they are able to activate their digital ID. And the process is very simple. You have an app called eCitizen app. You activate your digital ID, and that is the process. Then you get your Maisha digital ID. You continue, scan your face, it's confirmed, it's checked against the records in national registration, your fingerprints are checked, and then your ID credentials are processed, and you can be able to confirm your identity and have your digital ID on your phone. The fourth component, of course, is MID, the Maisha Integrated Database. And this is the database where the private sector, the government, all agencies are able to check the eKYC. You're able to know. And this is where we have the connection of all the registrations, whether it is death registrations, birth registrations, foreign national registrations, refugees residing in Kenya. All registrations are connected together in this very important database. And Kenya is currently upgrading its database to the latest, with the latest technologies, so that you can be able to check. The data in this database, of course, remains encrypted, and access to the database is regulated by Identity and Access Management System. In making the decisions on digital ID, there are quite a number of choices which we have made in the last few years. One, the electronic card has enhanced security features. And as I said earlier, the card has a dual interface chip, which can be accessed through either through a machine or through what we call NFC readable, that contains biometric and biographical data. Of course, UPI is a 9-digit number, as I had said, and citizens with ID cards. This was a very strategic decision also, that in transitioning to the new ecosystem, we are to ensure that we get a random number, which is a 9-digit number as opposed to 8-digit number. The NRB, the National Registration Bureau, has an AFI system which, with a database which stores both biometric and biographical data. NRB also is used to derive the digital ID, as I had explained. eCitizen, which is a government one-stop online platform, offers government services. Currently, we have more than 16,000 government services on eCitizen platform. And on daily basis, we are transacting more than $7 million on daily basis on eCitizen. Services and revenues collected from this platform amounts to $7 million daily, and the numbers are growing. Citizens use the digital ID to log into eCitizen. You use your digital ID to log into eCitizen. We currently have more than 13 million users on eCitizen platform. Of course, Maisha Integrated Database is the eKYC. MID only validates information as required by the agencies. Some of the safeguards and stakeholder engagements, I'm happy to note that in arriving at this decision, we are able to undertake 820 stakeholder engagements in form of public participation forums around the country. It's not very easy, but we're able to do it. We also had many meetings with the media, civil society, the private sector, religious leaders, and many other stakeholders who have interest in this very, very important area. In the interest of time, allow me to just quickly run through the lessons learned. It is very important to develop very clear technical specifications for a digital ID to succeed. Secondly, there is need to ensure that you have legal and regulatory framework that is aligned to be able to implement a digital ID ecosystem effectively. The third lesson we learned is the importance of building consensus through public participation forums. It is very important to build consensus and to be able to reach out to everybody in as far as arriving this is concerned. The fourth lesson learned is that it is very important to adopt an open standard. As you all are aware, open standard is now the way to go in the current ecosystem. The other very important lesson to learn is that not only the identity managers alone, it is very important to have the whole government approach so that you have ICT, you have security, you have health, you have education. You have everybody on the table to be able to succeed in this very important project. The other one is stakeholder management. For purposes of civil society, there's a lot of interest from the civil society, from religious groups, and it's very important to manage these stakeholders and bring them to the table. The other very important component we learned is that there's need to use experts to shape this process. Experts in this identity space are so critical in ensuring that you get every step right. It's also important to note that it is very important to get the support, express support from the top leadership of the country to be able to succeed in implementing a robust digital ID system. Number 10 is on resource mobilization. Mobilization of resources is so critical. And when you engage all stakeholders, then you're able to mobilize not only financial resources, you also need human resources. You need technical resources to be able to support you in ensuring you succeed in this ecosystem. The other lesson learned, of course, is security. As we are all aware, ID is the soul of the nation, and security is at the core of all the considerations as you look at this very important ecosystem. We also noted and learned that there are too many vested interests that require a lot of delicate balancing. There is a lot of delicate balancing to balance all the stakeholders, all the interests in this space. Number 13, we realize across the board that there are too many litigation issues. There are too many people going to court, and in Kenya we have done this like more than 4 times. And every time there are court issues, very serious challenges affecting the process. The other very important point we noted is that there's a lot of oligopolistic competition in this space. There are few players, huge players, who are very, very strong, and they usually interfere in terms of procurement with the processes as you try to engage in this project. So it's very important to note that you have to manage the oligopolistic competition nature of the players in this very important space. So as a way forward, and as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Kenya is on the road towards the implementation of a digital ID. We are actually on the road, and we have reviewed all the laws, and we continue making them even more reflective of the changes and the dynamism in this space. We are planning for an official launch, officially, after we have ensured that everything is placed. We are planning a launch of Maisha Digital ID. The other very important component is automation. The government of Kenya is in the process of ensuring that the entire government moves towards the digital platform. So we are digitizing all records, and Kenya is in the road towards what we call digital transformation. As I wind up, ladies and gentlemen, it is very important to note that in this space, it is very important to go with everybody. And I want to thank ID4Africa for bringing us together so that we can be able to engage and get into a discourse where we can be able to get some of the best practices around Africa and around the world, and we share ideas to ensure that we get it right the first time. For Kenya, we have done it 4 times, and we didn't get it right. We are confident that this time round, we are going to get it right, and I'm happy to note that in our journey, we have been able to engage with Dr. Atick, with the team from ID4Africa and other stakeholders, so that we get into track in as far as digital ID is concerned. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I wanted to say something. I mean, you've really been modest about the fact. Your presentation is the outcome of a huge, huge experience. I mean, this is somebody who's been in the ring, has gotten battled and had knocked out, and so he's not theoretical. He's not talking about theory. If you want experience, this is the outcome of the most sort of deepest level of experience. So thank you for the lessons learned, for having shared with us all the recommendations that come from real-world experience. And we look forward to continuing to learn from you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We move from Kenya to another fascinating project, another fascinating country, with Nigeria, with Engineer Odusote, who's the Director General. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, delegates from the digital ecosystem across Africa. I want to say good morning, first of all, to representatives of the Nigerian Parliament here, Senator Ulugbenga Daniel, Senator Musa Mustafa, and the Honorable Jimmy Odimayo and Honorable Gwalabe. Thank you for coming all the way. This shows that Nigeria is on the right track on the digital identity journey. I want to first of all say thank you to ID4Africa, Dr. Atick and his team for bringing us down to South Africa, Cape Town, for this conference, and I really want to commend you thus far on your 10-year digital identity journey. So thank you once again, Dr. Atick. I'm just going to be speaking to our digital identity journey in the last 9 months and the progress we have made so far. For those who don't know, the National Identity Management Commission, which is headed by myself, Engineer Abisoye COKER-ODUSOTE, as the Director General, is charged with the establishment and management of a national identity management system that is unique, secure, and widely accepted by all. The focus of the NIMC has two pivotal strategies, and the first one speaks to ensuring that there is seamless and inclusive enrollment. And what we have done so far is to see how we can capture the marginalized groups that cuts across the internally displaced people, the children, the elderly, the mothers, and also to ensure that the disabled are captured seamlessly. And what we have tried to do is to work with the civic organizations and also ensure that we also work with our ministries and departments and agencies that do a lot of work with the marginalized groups to ensure that they have inclusion for the digital identity program that we're working on in the country. We've also, the second strategy focuses on reliable identity verification platforms, which we have done extremely well in terms of ensuring that we have daily verifications done by the different private sectors, mainly the banks and the telecommunication companies. And we've also now started to add onboard a lot of government agencies, ministries, and departments for verification. So what we've really worked on is to ensure that we have an identity-enabled access to government services. Our strategy and approach is to ensure that the national identification number is integrated with essential public and private sector services, making it mandatory for accessing government services like healthcare, voting, taxes, and social benefits, as well as for the private sector transactions, such as banking and mobile phone registrations in Nigeria. I'll speak more to this when I get to the journey of NIMC. And our approach is very, very simple: to ensure that registration is expanded nationwide in the nooks and crannies of Nigeria and also the remote areas. So rather than we waiting for you to come to our centers to register, we will come to your doorstep. NIMC's 5-point agenda, which is basically a subset agenda of Mr. President's 8-point agenda, which focuses on identity and also robust database alongside technology. Our plan is to ensure that, first of all, we increase the enrollment, harmonization and integration of data across all the ministries, departments, and agencies to foster collaboration and ensure there's interoperability across the MDAs. Issuance and activation of a GMPC card. The GMPC card is a smart card, as known in other countries, and also has various options where you've got financial inclusion on those cards, where you have applets, different applets on the card and different services on the card. And you also have the option of opting for the EID card. For those that live abroad and don't have a physical card, you can definitely have the EID card for those that are in the diaspora. access to services to aid financial inclusion through the government-to-person payments, activation of payments and other solutions on the GMPC, continued collaboration with state government for integration with residence registration effort, availability of seamless verification services to all financial institutions. The last but not the least is increased public and private sector participation in using the NIN. The adoption of using the NIN is extremely critical to the success of any government-implemented programs or any programs the government would like to implement. So we've continued to create a lot of awareness for the efficacy of the NIN and continued enforcement drive of the mandatory use of NIN and aggressive monitoring and evaluation of the compliance to NIN use. NIMC's journey in the last 9 months. We've started off with the NIN and TIN integration with the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It's known as the NIN and TIN data for tax, which basically means that it's a NIN-based TIN. So we're basically harmonizing the two unique identifiers together to ensure that you only have one unique identifier for your tax purposes, for filing your tax, and that's the NIN. That was done in October of 2023, last year. We've also worked with the National Population Commission, who has set up an ECRVS and a geospatial database. And what we have done is to ensure that we're able to sync both databases for ease of registration of birth and also the revocation of death in real time. Secondly, with the NPC, we've also set up a joint implementation committee for the 2024 census, which will start towards the end of the year. The National Youth Service Corps system integration with NIMC for KYC verification as a date is 1.130835, and the calls that have been made on the verification platform. So they've never been integrated with the NIMC before, and so we had to ensure this was a successful collaboration between two agencies to ensure that the Nigerian youths are able to sign up for the NYSC with ease. NIMC also collaborated with SMIDAN, which is the Small Medium Enterprise Agency, for the provision of KYC to facilitate the provision of grants and nano loans to micro, small, and medium enterprises worth about 50 billion naira, currently at test integration phase. The bill for the NIMC 2024 Amendment Act has passed the second reading in the National House of Representatives, and it's about to pass its first reading at the senatorial level. And I have the gentlemen that have come all the way from Nigeria to thank for their support in making sure that they push these bills on the floor. In March 2024, we launched the NIMC Self-Service Way-Best portal. So we realized that we had, as a result of the integration and harmonization we had been doing on the front end, at the back end, we realized that there was an increase and a surge of people turning up to our centers to be able to sign up for or register or be enrolled for a national identification number. And we decided that we needed to address it and sort of make it a lot easier for them. And so we came up with the idea to create the self-service web-based portal so that you can sit at home, in the comfort of your home, and do your registration online and your modifications online. And you don't have to come into the center, except for the registration, you're able to do your biometric capturing in there. So that sort of halves down or cuts down our processing time for each application. So we had to make sure that that was done for simple updates of your existing NIN data. We're also in collaboration with NASCO, that's the National Social Safety Agency, on the flag of palliatives pre-disbursement training and pilot has been ongoing. So in collaboration with them, there is a a grant by the World, a loan by the World Bank to ensure that there's provision of funding by them for the palliatives, for the Poorest of the Poor initiative in Nigeria. And we are working with NASCO to ensure that the National Social Register is robust and has been updated accordingly. So far, we have over 107 million names issued as of May 10, 2024, to be specific. 107,342,085. And as you can see from the stats, we have a slightly higher percentage of male registered at 56.6% and females registered at 43.4%. I spoke a little bit about the access to government services, which is basically where our focus is at the moment. And this is just a snippet of our strategic direction to ensuring that there's provision of access to government services. So I would quickly take you through it. For financial inclusion, allowing the individuals to open bank accounts through EKYC, enabling digital payments, and also reducing risk for credit. Women's empowerment, targeting enrollment of women and vulnerable in the society to enhance inclusivity and also KYC. Social safety nets, better targeting of beneficiaries, support the development of a social safety register, enable digital G2P payments. National security allows for better security as the most comprehensive biometric citizen database in terms of border control and a lot of travel. Health, allow universal health insurance coverage, improve patient management and coordinated delivery, registration of NIN at birth and revocation of death. So we are, as part of the use cases that we have partnered with the Ministry of Health to ensure that all the health centers now have NIN registration available at service at each of the health centers. We've also partnered with the Ministry of Agriculture for the production of the GMPC cards for the farmers so that farmers can be properly profiled. Regarding the MSME support, I spoke to that earlier about the partnership with SMEDAN to support micro, small, medium business enterprises to access loans and government grants and support by enabling identification APIs. We've also partnered with the NEL Fund on the student loan applications, which will go live. For the first time in Nigeria, students will be able to apply for loans, for student loans, and that will go live on May 24. Food security enables support to farmers with KYC to access farm inputs. Education support the provision of loans to students, improves education information systems, and technology real-time NIN validation, which allows for quicker turnaround in verifying identity of citizens. Some partner agencies, we are working with the NIPS, Nigerian Interbank Settlement Systems, which is focusing on, which our focus is engaging with the CBN, financial services, to produce national payment card layered on identity. The card has the potential to be a game changer in boosting financial inclusion, social interventions, travel, amongst others. And the card is powered by Afrigo, which is the first indigenous domestic card service provider that we have in Nigeria and possibly in West Africa. Partnering with the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, known as SMEDAN, to implement 2 financial empowerment initiatives of government, namely the Presidential Palliative Grant and Presidential Palliative Loan Program for nano businesses. MSMEs and manufacturers with planned targeted beneficiary to be 70% of women and youth. Collaborating with the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office to build a reliable social safety register and the FIRs. I've quickly spoken about that. I've got very little time left. This just shows you what we've done, the register. And this is basically a slide of new developments. And NIMC in the next 12 months upgrade the AB's capacity from 100 to 250 million, DPI creating the foundation of the Nigeria stack, implementation of PKI for Nigeria, NIMS 2.0 redesign, mobile enrollment, and introduction of GMPC cards. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. In fact, I'll just say thank you, but also it seems that you have on your shoulders the responsibility of being the largest identity system in Africa. So that's an honor and a responsibility. I think you're more than capable to handle. But you also have a lot of new projects in the pipeline. So we look forward to continuing to track what you're doing in Nigeria, either through the live casts on AGM. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, this is the moment when you've all been waiting for. Operator, put up Slido, please. And I want to start with a quick poll. Quick poll. One of the things that you have seen. Operator, are you ready with Slido? Okay. You may have seen 3 presentations, and every one of them mentioned the need for an identity card. It is here. So I was wondering if this room thinks that ID cards are going to still be relevant or not. So the question is, will African populations still require ID cards to meet identification needs in the next 10 years? Les populations africaines auront-elles encore besoin de cartes d'identité pour répondre à leurs besoins d'identification dans 5 à 10 ans? This is an important question, because we are going into a world which is a digital world, and you might think, no, we will not going to need any physical or materialized medium. Operator, stop the poll. I think we had enough answers. No, put it up, put the results up. Put the results up. So you could see, basically we are talking about the overwhelming majority is saying, even in a world with digital identity, we have to have a physical proof of identity. And that means in the next 10 years, we cannot build systems without thinking about the population needs. Let me ask the 3 heads of identity authorities just to say a very brief reaction to this poll. Does this surprise you?
Yes, it does surprise me. I would expect it would have been the reverse. 15%, 16% voting for we're not going to need cards 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, you are making sure your population is getting cards.
Yes, today, yes. But 10 years down the line, this is going to be your card. That's my personal assessment.
But maybe from 5 to 10 years, I mean, in 5 years, do you think everybody in Ethiopia will have a smartphone and therefore they don't need the FIDA card?
In Ethiopia, we have about 42 million smartphones, according to the telecom reports. Okay. So it's actual data. It's a big number, 42 million. It's more than half of the adult population.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Kenya, what do you think?
Thank you very much. I think I agree with the comment that in the next 5 to 10 years, and I can even extend it to even in the next 20 years, we shall still need the physical cards, because one, of trust, actually transition towards a cardless world will take a long time. Still, even if we go digital, we still need the physical cards. People need to still feel, because of trust and because of security. When you go around, you cannot only rely on virtual. You still need something to carry around. You still need something to show around. And I think it is very ambitious to imagine that in the next 5 to 10 years, we shall not need cards. In my estimation, in the next 20, 30 years, these cards will still be very important in our society. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for that. Engineer Odusote.
So my take on this is, when you're looking at how still need the cards,
yes.
For now we do, and I'll tell you why. Technology-wise, in Nigeria, a lot of the remote areas still don't have access to internet. Okay? Then secondly, in terms of devices, mobile devices, access to mobile devices, the cost has to be lowered for them to be able to, for it to be affordable. So we're speaking about the unbanked sector. And so they need to be able to have access to all of these facilities available, and that's one. Two, there's also a trust issue, especially with Nigeria. I don't know if you recall, a year and a half ago, the CBN government had stopped people from accessing cash and said, you know, just stick to transferring. And we saw that the public's reaction to that was extremely negative. So there's that trust issue with a card. If you have, so there's a high demand for the national identity physical card at the moment, more than a digital EID. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's very important that when we think about technological advancements, we do not think of them out of the context of the countries that we are serving. You might think, theoretically, why do I need a card? But in reality, a card is at the heart of what the population expects, trusts, needs. And therefore, even though it's an invention of 10, 15, 20 years ago, it is still part of the identity ecosystem. And we cannot let technology dictate, get rid of the card. That would be a technological decision, not a population, end-user driven decision. Okay, so we're learning something. Please put back the Slido questions, because we've got lots of questions on Slido. Thank you for participating in that. Let's put up the questions. Put up the questions on the screen, please. Sorry, this is the first time the crew is getting Slido ironed out, so they will get better at it in the next session, I promise you. Okay, so we're going to try to do is take the most popular questions for each one of the speakers. So we'll see which are the most popular questions. I see first question, which open standards does FIDA support, and is it interoperable with other ID solutions? So that's for you. Yodahe?
Interoperability is at the core of our ID strategy. Interoperability, one, we have sectoral IDs, or as you call them, functional IDs. Your driver's license, your taxpayer ID. And in Ethiopia's case, we are a federal government, so 14 different regional governments, they issue their own residential kind of address-based IDs. So the whole reason why we have FIDA in Ethiopia is to ensure interoperability. As far as interoperability is concerned, we're doing it through standard KYC application interfaces. So it's about ensuring there is a unique identifier across different databases, but we also respect and follow the principle of aliases. So basically, your token for health and your token for agriculture are separate to ensure privacy, but at the same time, interoperability is the core of why we're doing this. So, yeah.
But what about the open standards? What open standards are you adopting for all the components of the ID system?
So as we're rolling out the new and upgraded the FIDA application, FIDA app, we are trying to adhere to distributed ID standards, the W3C standards.
W3 standard.
Yeah. But we use an open source platform called MOSIP, which is already adhering to many open standard specifications.
Okay. So Kenya. So we go to question that's most popular to Kenya. Kenya, please explain new guidelines on vetting. This seems to be a very popular question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Atick. Just to begin by explaining what vetting is. Kenya, about 30 years ago, introduced vetting, security vetting, for acquisition of IDs. And the reason why it did that is because about 30 years ago, there was an instability, there was a lot of influx of non-Kenyans through porous border. And the government decided that because there are many people coming to Kenya from the neighborhood, we need to introduce vetting to confirm whether the persons applying for IDs are Kenyans or not. But for the last 30 years, this vetting for IDs has been abused. So the new government, which came to power about 2 years ago, decided that we are going to do away with vetting because the communities at the borders felt that they were being discriminated by being subjected to vetting for IDs. So the new government has decided to do away with vetting and replaced it with new guidelines. Among the guidelines is increase in school registration. There's now more emphasis on registration at school for school-going children for IDs. The second policy shift is utilizing technology, using Maisha number, registering children at birth to ensure that they get numbers which later on become their ID numbers. So when you register children at birth, then there would be no need to vet them. The other dynamic change that has happened is using family trees, using technology to create family trees, so that you don't need to vet, because if you can be able to know the parents of the child, you know the grandparents, you have a family tree, then there would be no need for vetting. Last but not least, in the new guidelines, is holding the chiefs and the assistant chiefs, the local administration, personally accountable and responsible, so that when you are registering persons, the chief, the area chief or assistant chief, put their thumbprint in the form that is digitally generated. So, and that form will be taken to the National Registration Bureau for registration. And therefore, if there is a mistake, and they make a mistake of registering people who are not Kenyans, then they are personally held responsible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to go to Nigeria now. There was an interesting question, and it had to do with the fact that is the NIN now mandatory for government services, and how is it impacting access to those services by people that don't have a NIN? It says here, is mandatory use of NIN already in place, and how is this impacting access to government services for those without NIN? A very good question.
Thank you very much for that question. So it is mandatory. It's always been mandatory. But what we have done is intensified the drive to ensure that we have one single unique identifier for Nigeria for the use or access to all services by the citizens. So far, we've had very, very positive feedback on that, especially with the collaborations with our ministries and departments and agencies. We have over 20 working groups in ensuring that we're able to fulfill our mandate to make sure that they have access to services via the NIN. So for tax, we need to be able to use the NIN instead of the TIN. And also for issues like the palliative programs, we need to be able to use the NIN. We're able to use identity to know who are these beneficiaries. And in the past in Nigeria, a lot of the times when it comes to government intervention programs, cash was the order of the day. So with this new government, they are very keen on ensuring that it's basically a no cash approach, and we're able to use the NIN to be able to track all the beneficiaries are, if they have received their payments in real time, and also be able to reconcile in real time also. So thank you.
So do you see an impact, the fact that NIN is mandatory, is that leading to more demand for the NIN?
Absolutely. So, and more integrations with the different ministries and departments and agencies has driven up the request for the NIN. So it's part of our enrollment drive, and like my counterpart in Kenya had mentioned, we're planning on going out to the schools also to make sure that we're able to register the children. I mean, I didn't have enough time to speak about all of these things. So there's so much that we're doing, and I just wanted to give a summary, a high-level summary of what we've done.
Great. I want to go back to Ethiopia, and there is a very interesting question. What is your monetizing strategy of FIDA?
That's a good question. As I said, our strategy is continuously evolving, as it should. It's a dynamic strategy. So in terms of monetizing, we've seen some experiences where KYC has a certain fee associated to it, different levels of KYC. For basic KYC, certain amount. For high level, like all the KYC fields are required when it's full KYC, a higher amount. We've considered that one as a form of generating operation revenue going forward, but at the end of the day, this is a digital public infrastructure. It's not something that can become a corporation or a
moneymaker,
revenue-generating entity. It's a shared resource. It's a fundamental infrastructure for the nation. So we don't plan to make a lot of money from FIDA, but from other services that will, new products that will come out of the presence of a trust framework. So that will be the real benefit.
But in reality, since this is going to make the government more efficient and therefore save money and drive economic growth, I would imagine that this would be funded from the appropriation of the government as a shared resource investment, because all the ministries will benefit from it, that your budget, you don't need to make your budget through selling products. They should be appropriated. Is that the thinking in Ethiopia?
So for the immediate rollout, we have a 5-year project with the World Bank. So the government took a loan to roll out the basic infrastructure, including the expensive components like enrollment, registering people all over the country, 90 million in a short time. So for the initial phase, the government is front-loading or financing the rollout. But for the operational phase, as you said, a lot of entities have a stake in it, including banks and telcos. So it's going to be co-financed through
so essentially public-private partnership as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so it's not a simple answer. You have multiple options to consider for financing your identity and sustaining it. Okay, so let's go to the next question that is for Kenya. And that's very popular, it seems. They're asking you, Maisha card and Kenya ID seems expensive and unnecessarily complex. I'm not sure where that impression came from, but let's assume that. How much does it cost and who pays for it?
Okay, thank you. Just to begin by saying Maisha card in Kenya is costing 300 shillings, which is equivalent to about $2.
$2, okay.
$2.
And it's valid for how long?
And
the validity of the card, how long? 5 years?
The validity of the card is 10 years.
10 years.
The card will last for 10 years.
Okay.
But the cost of production of the card is about $4. So it is subsidized.
Subsidized, okay.
So in terms of cost, I want to say that as much as it may look a bit expensive, the government is meeting 50% of the cost. And our strategy is to work with partners. If there are Kenyans who cannot afford the card for one reason or another, we are working closely with partners who are able to subsidize, and even including county governments who are able to pay part of that cost. So we have an hybrid kind of system, although we are also encouraging Kenyans who can afford to pay for this card to pay for it. And our estimation is that we can issue 3 million cards in 1 year. Why? Because 1.5 million cards are new applicants, people who are turning 18, and another 1.5 million Kenyans have lost their cards and they want to place for one reason or another. So in terms of complexity, to me, I think it's not complex. I think the method and the strategy to apply for this Maisha card is similar to the old second generation card. This third generation card is the same. It's the same to acquire it. It is very easy. You go to an office, you apply for it, or you can even apply for it online and be able to get this card without any inconvenience at all.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Going to Nigeria, I wanted to combine a couple of questions. They all relate to the issue of for example, what's the difference between NIMC's initiative and Nigeria's bank verification system? Why cannot the two systems be harmonized? And then the other question, does NIMC's system interoperate with the birth registration system in Nigeria? So it's about connecting NIMC to banks, to the central bank system, and also to birth registration.
I got your first question correctly, which speaks to the
NIMC and the BVN.
And the BVN.
Why is there
Okay.
redundancy?
So what a lot of people don't understand locally, and we've started to create awareness on that, is that the BVN is actually a private unique identifier. The government only has an 11-digit unique identifier, which is only one, which is the NIN. And so what we have done is to ensure that we integrate the BVN with the NIN, so that there's only one super unique identifier, which will be the NIN. So we are in talks on harmonizing that with the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have a working group to ensure that that gets done. So they've started to speak on ensuring that we do the proper harmonization.
So
Yes.
the BVN will not be ultimately the number, it will be the NIN, the number.
Yes, so the BVN is basically a number which was established by the financial
banks,
institutions, by the banks. But the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, gave a directive of last year that before April this year, that every single account must now have the NIN incorporated onto it.
Okay. And what about the link with birth registration?
Yes, so we are in partnerships and collaboration with the National Population Commission. They're one agency that I'm super excited about. And so what we looked at when they developed the ECRVS and the geospatial database was to see how can we be able to do the registration of birth in real time and also revoke death in real time from our own end. So what we do is ensure that at every birth, once they have been able to go through their own process, your NIN is supposed to be generated for you on their platform, on their application. And that's how it has been designed. And also what the other side of it is, at the NIMC end, we're able to call up the digital birth certificate in real time, which has never been done before. It's always been a physical copy, but now we can now call up the digital birth certificate.
So the integration is happening.
The integration is happening.
It's happening, which is
Yes.
great news. Okay, so I want to run another quick poll because you have seen another common element between the three. They mentioned a lot about security, privacy, and concerns, etc. So I'm going to try to run a poll which basically asks the audience, put the poll, please. I've activated it. Put it on the screen. And the poll is going to say, how would you rate the current attention to privacy and data protection issues by the identity community? So let's see what you think. So keep it going. By the way, since we had an exceptionally late start, I'm going to beg you to stay with us 10 more minutes because there are lots of questions, and then we'll release you to the opening of the exhibition, etc. Because I think you may want to stay for this part. Okay, so I think stop. We can stop a bit. It's just. Okay, I think we are split to two extremes, which is some of you think it's okay, it's good, some of you think it's poor. Our attention to privacy and data protection issues by our community is not yet mature enough to convince everyone that it is being done right. That's a reason why we should be spending even more time and energy into trying to drill down and understand. Would any one of you want to react? Does this surprise you that we see the identity community here is assessing itself by saying 40% of them think it's very, very poor. It's very poor. It's poor. Any comments?
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. For us in Kenya, we think that the attention is good. And Kenya is a very litigious society. You cannot really get away with these things. And the reason why we have a data protection office in Kenya is because of court cases and litigations. And overall, the Kenyan society is aware of their rights and cannot be ignored. And they will always ask questions about identity. You cannot hide. Their privacy of their data, the security of their data. So from where I sit, I think this is a very important issue, and that as a community, as a society, we cannot ignore. Like, for example, when we are doing Maisha card and Maisha ecosystem, we had to do what we call data protection impact assessment. Because even as we speak now, we have like 5 cases on this matter, active in court. Thank you.
Okay, actually, if you want to make one last comment, because I want to run one last poll, because it's very controversial, and I want to end on it. If you care, just...
With regards to data protection, I think it is extremely crucial in the success of this digital identity journey that we have all embarked on, and we cannot underscore its importance. And in Nigeria, one of the first bills that the president passed in May of 2023 was the establishment of the Data Protection Commission. And that shows that once the government is aligned and understands the key importance of ensuring that every citizen's data is protected.
Yeah, but I think the enforcement is what this community might be concerned about, is that laws are now almost existent everywhere, which is good progress, but the enforcement bodies may not yet be funded, may not be yet staffed to actually enforce the commissions for data protection enforcement. And we do have with us about 30 people from data protection. So we're very excited to have you with us, but we want to hear more about the enforcement aspect. So later in the week in the workshops, if you can contribute to that dialogue, thank you for that. My apologies, Yodahe, I'm not going to let you respond because I have one crucial poll that I want to show because many of you have asked that question. Put it up, please. And this is a simple question, and it says, and I think it came a little bit in the discussion of Ambassador BITOK, which was, yes, please. The question is, should citizenship be separated from identity enrollment? Citizenship data is not collected during enrollment. So I'll go back to NIMC. You do not collect citizenship data, correct? You have a minimal set of data that you collect.
We have a minimal set of data, which is 10 fields.
Exactly.
I mean, max number of 10 fields.
I'll go to Yodahe, and then I'll come back to Ambassador. Yodahe, do you collect citizenship data?
Yes, we collect, but we have the option of leaving it blank. So essentially, it could be optional, because citizenship, of course, it's you're as part of a certain nation. You should it's your citizenship right, but human right comes first. Identity rights are a human right. So whether you have documentation on you or not, you have the right to identify yourself, and you have a right to certain services, not all services. Maybe you cannot vote, maybe you cannot get a passport, but you can get other services. Majority of services, in fact, do not necessarily require citizenship. So as part of human development, identity should focus on, it should be for everyone. Citizenship rights are important. Citizenship data is very important, but it should come next.
Okay. Ambassador, what's your perspective on this?
Okay. In Kenya, identity cards is proof of citizenship. Okay. So the answer is no. I think they should not be...
You are with the majority?
I go with the majority. It should not be separated.
Okay.
However, we can have a master integrated population register that has everybody in there. Like we have people who are citizens, people who are foreigners, people who are refugees, people who are being born, so that you have a system which is interoperable, which can be interconnected to other systems in one master integrated database. But in as far as citizenship is concerned, Kenyan law is very clear that anybody who has identity card is a citizen of Kenya. If you are not a citizen, you can have identity for refugees or identity for foreign nationals, that kind of identity. So in a way, it is two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are way behind schedule. So, but you could see a simple theoretical answer to say, well, let's separate citizenship from identity. In Africa, that's not the reality. The reality is that in some cases, some countries need to know that these are citizens and they want proof of citizenship to be the ID card. Is this right or wrong? There is no right or wrong. This is needs of a country, responding to needs of a country. Okay, I think I should stop here because I would like you to be back here, please, at 11:30 after the break. We're going to start with PS2, yet another passionate session with another Slido session with lots of interactions and polls and speakers, talking about a set of know-how exchanges that are listed in the event guide. So please join me in thanking the three speakers for their wonderful contributions. Thank you very much. And be back at 11:30 sharp so we can continue, start on time and end on time. So thank you very much. Patience, please.